The flyers had appeared on telephone poles and shop doors overnight. No one had seen anyone put them up, but there they were. Worn, faded posters advertising the Sinister Carnival, scheduled for one night only. Alex traced her fingers over the weathered paper, her heart skipping a beat. Growing up, being the quiet bookworm in a small town meant she remembered the stories her grandfather used to tell on stormy nights. Stories of a ghostly troupe that traveled from town to town, never staying in one place for long. He'd told her about the performers who wore masks to hide their hollow eyes, rides that spun faster than they should, and not all those who entered came back the same. Some returned home speaking in tongues, her grandfather had said, his weathered hands trembling. Others came back empty, walking, talking shells of themselves. The missing, well, they say they become part of the show. She'd always dismissed it as a creepy bedtime story. Until now, the carnival had returned. "Come on, Alex, it'll be fun," said her friend Maya, tugging at her sleeve. Maya had always been the thrill-seeker of their group, her bright blue-streaked hair matching her bold personality. "When's the last time something exciting happened in this town?" "I don't know about this," Alex said, gnawing at her bottom lip. "My grandfather used to warn me about a carnival just like this one." Ryan, her boyfriend of 6 months, slipped an arm around her waist. "Your grandfather told ghost stories to scare kids, Alex. Besides, I'll be right there if you get scared." He winked, casual confidence radiating from him, as always. Unlike Alex with her caution and Maya with her boldness, Ryan prided himself on being grounded, always dismissing stupid, spooky stuff with a logical explanation. Jake, the quiet photographer of their group, held up his vintage camera. "Think of the shots I could get. These old carnivals have a certain aesthetic you just can't find anymore." His eyes gleamed behind wire-rimmed glasses, always seeing the world through frames and compositions. Feeling outnumbered, Alex reluctantly agreed. A carnival was a carnival, she reasoned, and they were all going together. What could go wrong? As they approached the clearing on the edge of town that evening, Alex felt the first stirrings of dread. The carnival sprawled out before them, cloaked in thick, misty fog that seemed to trap every whisper and every creak of the rides. The fog dulled the colors of the tents, making them seem lifeless. Above them the Ferris wheel loomed, its lights flickering like dying fireflies. They entered, the air thick with the sickly sweet smell of old cotton candy mixed with something metallic, almost like rust or old pennies. A hunched figure at the entrance handed them tickets without a word, his face hidden beneath a cracked porcelain mask painted with a frozen smile. As she took hers, Alex thought she saw a flash of something dark in the eye hole, something not quite human. "Is it just me, or is this place kind of off?" Alex muttered to Ryan, who had gone uncharacteristically quiet. He cleared his throat, trying to maintain his usual nonchalance. "Come on, it's just an old carnival," he replied, brushing it off, though his voice had lost some of its usual confidence. "That's the charm, right? Vintage and all that." The group laughed nervously and moved deeper into the carnival. The attractions were strange and outdated, covered in dust, yet they moved as if recently used. A feeling of being watched persisted for Alex. Even when she looked, she only saw shadows on the foggy ground. "Look at that," Jake said in a low voice, pointing to an ancient-looking carousel. Someone had carved the wooden horses with unsettling detail, their eyes wide and terrified, mouths open in silent screams. Some were missing limbs, others had gashes carved into their flanks. Jake raised his camera, capturing the macabre sight. "That's artistic," Maya said, trying to maintain her excitement but failing to hide the tremor in her voice. As they approached the skeletal merry-go-round that spun in slow, uneven circles, they noticed something odd. There was no operator, the ride moving on its own, mechanical sounds echoing in the still air like labored breathing. "What kind of carnival doesn't have people running the rides?" asked Maya, eyeing the merry-go-round, her earlier enthusiasm dimmed. "Maybe it's on some kind of timer," Ryan suggested, though his voice wavered. "Or remote-controlled from somewhere else." "Sure," Alex murmured, glancing at a small group of performers huddled near a tent. They wore faded costumes of once bright colors and cracked masks like the ticket seller, but their eyes seemed to follow her, dark and empty beneath the porcelain. Their silence was more unnerving than if they'd been shouting or laughing. The hollow gaze of the figures seemed to sink into her skin, sending a chill down her spine. One performer, taller than the rest, wearing a ringmaster's coat that had long lost its luster, cocked his head at a severe angle when he noticed Alex watching. His mask was different, white, half black, and somehow it seemed to shift between expressions as he stared. She noticed the others glancing back too, their excitement visibly dimming. "Let's check out the games," Jake suggested, pointing to a row of carnival booths where no barkers called for players. The first booth featured milk bottles stacked in pyramids. "Step right up," Ryan said with forced enthusiasm, trying to lighten the mood. He handed over a ticket to the masked attendant and received 3 balls in return. The attendant's fingers were unnaturally long and ice-cold as they brushed against Ryan's hand. Ryan threw the first ball, knocking over the top bottle with ease. The sound it made when hitting the ground was wrong, not the clatter of plastic or wood, but a wet, meaty thud. The second throw missed, but the third connected again, toppling the remaining bottles. This time, Alex could have sworn she heard a faint moan from the attendant as the bottle fell. The attendant silently handed Ryan a prize, a small, vintage-looking doll with button eyes and a stitched mouth. Someone had sewn one of its arms on backward. Thanks," Ryan said, holding the doll awkwardly before offering it to Alex. "Souvenir, I'll pass," she said, unable to look at the thing. "Maybe Maya wants it." Maya shook her head vigorously. "No way, that thing gives me the creeps." As they continued, Alex started noticing other strange details. The distorted laughter that seemed to follow them no matter where they went. The way the rides would creak to life when they neared and fall silent as they passed. And then there were the shadows. Flickering along the ground, the shadows seemed to twist and stretch, clawing at their feet as if they were alive, sometimes moving in directions opposite to their owners. They approached a large tent with a faded sign that read, "Hall of Mirrors." Jake perked up. "This will make for some amazing shots," he said, already adjusting his camera settings. Inside, the mirrors were ancient and tarnished, their surfaces cloudy with age. But instead of fun distortions, Alex saw something horrifying. In one mirror, her reflection was gaunt, hollow-cheeked, with dark pits where her eyes should be. In another, Maya's reflection was missing her mouth, just smooth skin where it should have been. "Guys," Maya's voice shook as she pointed to a mirror where Ryan's reflection was absent. "Where are you, Ryan?" Ryan stood in front of the mirror, his face drained of color as he stared at the space where his reflection should be. "This is just an illusion, right?" he asked, his usual skepticism crumbling. Jake snapped photo after photo, entranced. "These are incredible effects," he muttered, though his hands trembled. Alex grabbed his arm. "Let's get out of here." They stumbled out of the Hall of Mirrors, shaken. As they regrouped outside, they came upon an old-fashioned photo booth tucked away in a forgotten corner, the faded sign above it reading, "Capture your soul." Maya dared Alex and Ryan to take a photo together, laughing to break the tension that had settled over them. "Might as well have something to remember this weird night by," she said, trying to sound casual. They squeezed inside, and Alex pulled the red velvet curtain closed. The booth whirred and clicked, and Alex forced a smile, feeling an inexplicable weight settle in her chest. The machine spat out a strip of photos, but the laughter died in her throat as she looked at them. A shadowy figure with hollow, staring eyes stood behind their smiling faces in every frame. In the first photo, it stood at a distance. It was much closer in the second. In the third, its hand rested on Alex's shoulder, and in the fourth, the figure pressed its featureless face against her cheek. She handed the photos to Ryan without a word, watching his face pale as he looked at them. They stepped out, their uneasy silence filling the air. Maya was the first to speak. "Guys, are you okay?" "Look at this," Ryan said, handing her the photos. Maya's face fell, and Jake gathered around, his expression mirroring her horror. The photographer's hands shook as he examined the images with professional interest. "This isn't Photoshop or a double exposure," Jake said, his voice barely audible. "This is something else." Staying at the carnival didn't seem like such a good idea. "We need to leave," Alex said, her voice firm. No one argued. They turned back toward the entrance, but as they walked, the carnival seemed to stretch, pulling them deeper into its maze. No matter which way they turned, the same faded tents and flickering lights surrounded them. Panic bubbled up in Alex's chest as she realized the path had shifted, leading them away from the way they'd come. "Guys, this doesn't make sense," said Jake, his photographer's eye for detail making him the first to notice. "We came from that direction and that tent is blocking the way, and I swear it wasn't there before." A bitter laugh echoed through the carnival, distorted and echoing, as if the very air was mocking them. Ryan grabbed Alex's hand, his earlier skepticism gone. "It's a trick, right? Some sort of haunted house thing." His voice cracked, betraying his fear. "Then why does it feel so real?" Alex's voice trembled, but she tightened her grip on Ryan's hand, needing the reassurance of his presence. They passed the carousel again, except now some horses had fresh, wet stains on their wooden flanks. One horse, a black one with wild, rolling eyes, seemed to turn its head to watch them as they hurried past. The laughter grew louder, and the masked performers emerged from the shadows, moving with unnatural, jerky motions as they blocked their path. The friends huddled together, heartbeats pounding as the figures drew closer. One performer, the tall ringmaster, lifted a hand, pointing a skeletal finger at Alex. "You," a voice rasped from behind the mask, the words stretching unnaturally. "Grandfather's blood." Desperation surged through her. "Run!" she shouted, pulling Ryan along as they broke into a sprint, dodging between the rides and tents. The others followed, gasping and stumbling, the sounds of the carnival rising around them, a cacophony of broken music, screeching metal, and those chilling laughs. Maya screamed as her jacket caught on something. She turned to find one of the masked figures holding the fabric, its head tilted in that impossible angle. With a desperate jerk, she tore herself free, leaving a piece of her jacket in the creature's grasp. They reached the Ferris wheel, its lights flashing, and ducked beneath it, hoping to lose their pursuers. But the performers seemed to melt out of the darkness, their hollow eyes locked onto the group as they closed in. "What do they want?" Jake gasped, clutching his camera like a lifeline. "New performers," Alex whispered, her grandfather's stories flooding back. "New masks." And then she saw it, a small gap between two tents, leading into an alleyway she didn't remember passing before. She motioned to the others and they darted through, breaths ragged, feet pounding against the packed earth. The alley twisted and turned, narrowing as they ran, until it opened into a clearing with a large, aged mirror propped against a fence. Without thinking, Alex approached the mirror, drawn by something she couldn't explain. In its reflection, she saw the carnival stretching out behind them. But this version of the carnival was rotting, decayed, its colors muted and lifeless. And in the reflection, the performers weren't wearing masks. Their faces were pale, sunken, their eyes empty with voids that stared back at her with a ravenous hunger. Some of them she recognized with a jolt of horror, faces from missing person posters she'd seen over the years. One by one, the others noticed their expressions, a mix of horror and confusion. The laughter grew louder, as if the carnival itself was taunting them, urging them to look, to understand the truth. "This carnival, it's a trap," Alex whispered. "It doesn't want us to leave. It wants us to join them." In the mirror, she could see Maya's reflection beginning to change, a porcelain sheen creeping over her features as if her skin was hardening into a mask. Maya screamed, touching her face in panic. "It's happening to us," she cried. "We're becoming like them." A shadow moved in the mirror, separating from the others. The figure, the tall ringmaster, stepped closer, reaching out a hand toward Alex, as if inviting her to come closer. His mask had slipped, revealing what lay beneath, not a face but a swirling void of shadows. "Blood recognizes blood," the voice rasped. "Your grandfather escaped us once. You will not." "No," she shouted, and in a last surge of terror-fueled strength, she grabbed the nearest rock and hurled it at the mirror. The glass shattered with an inhuman scream, fragments flying in all directions. In that instant, the carnival seemed to waver, like a mirage in the desert. Alex turned and fled, grabbing Ryan's hand and pulling him along. The others followed, breaking through the clearing, the sounds of the carnival fading as they stumbled out into the empty field where it had been. They collapsed, panting, looking back, but the carnival was gone. Only the faint outline of wheel tracks remained, leading into the distance. They sat in stunned silence, the chill of the carnival still clinging to their skin. "Did that happen?" Ryan asked, his voice small and uncertain. All his previous skepticism shattered. Jake wordlessly checked his camera, only to find the memory card corrupted. All his photos were gone, except for one, a blurry image of the carousel, where one horse seemed to turn its head toward the camera. Maya's hand trembled as she touched her face, relieved to find it was normal. "I never want to talk about this again." The next day, Alex returned to the clearing alone, needing to convince herself that what had happened was real, but the field was empty. No sign of the tents, the performers, or even the entrance remained. Only one thing caught her eye, a single faded carnival flyer, fluttering against the trunk of a nearby tree. She picked it up, heart pounding as she read the words scrawled in faint, looping script. "One night only. Blood calls to blood." The flyer crumbled in her hands, disintegrating into dust. And as the wind carried it away, Alex felt the weight of those hollow eyes watching, waiting, knowing that somewhere, in some other town, the carnival would open its doors again. And somewhere deep inside, a part of her, the part that shared her grandfather's blood, felt a strange, terrible longing to follow.